Have you ever witnessed a judge go completely ballistic and lose IT in court? I heard about it from a lawyer friend who was involved. A little background. I live in a city that's now about 120,000 people in California. 5 miles east there's a small town that's very much run by the old boy network. The main drag is the road that goes from our city, through this city, and then to the next city to the east. The main drag goes from 55 down to 35 in town, and then back up as you leave it. One day, the town decides to lower the speed limit on a 2-block stretch from 35 to 25, which given the road design and the traffic, is ridiculously slow. There was only one thing. The city forgot to put up the sign indicating the new speed. They were a couple of people a day for speeding on that 2-block segment. If anybody fought the ticket claiming the speed limit wasn't posted for those 2 blocks, Officer Friendly, whichever one had written the ticket, would swear under oath that it was there and they must have just not paid attention. Enter my lawyer friend. He gets popped one day and he knew there wasn't a sign with the 25 limit. So he goes back the next day with his wife riding shotgun and holding a video camera, recording the entire passage through town. Lawyer friend goes to court, and explains that the speed limit wasn't posted. Officer Friendly insists that it was, so he pops in the videotape and asks the officer to point out where the sign is. Lots of hemming and hawing, and because the video is timestamped, he can't even claim the video was taken before the new limit was enacted. The judge apparently very pointedly asked why the officer said the sign was there when it wasn't, and he said the chief told us to say that if anybody fought the ticket. The judge asks the people waiting to plead their case how many were there for the same kind of ticket, and 4 or 5 hands went up. They would hear all the traffic cases one morning a week. The judge explains that their tickets will all be dismissed. He then tells the bailiff to call the police chief and the city manager to tell them to meet him in chambers that afternoon. The bailiff comes back a few minutes later and says they both told him they were too busy to come in. According to lawyer friend, the judge pretty much turned purple and told him to call them back to tell them that if they weren't in the courtroom at 1:30, he'd issue a bench warrant for their arrest. Somehow they managed to clear their schedules. It was probably because the judge had a reputation for bringing God's own thunder down upon the heads of people who pulled stuff like that. It led to a wider investigation, and they discovered that about 80 of those tickets had been written. The town had to refund the fines and court costs, write to the state explaining those tickets had been issued in error and that the infraction needed to be removed from their records. They also had to write to everybody's insurance company saying the same thing, so it didn't affect their insurance rates.